direct quote from the ritual.
So the first one is the recognition signal, and the second is what you call the penal sign.
Yes, that's true.
And are there other signs and signals connected with Freemasonry?
There are many others. There is a recognition signal and a penal sign for every single degree in Freemasonry, and I have been through the 32nd degree and have experienced all these recognition signals and penal signs. But all the signs after the 3rd degree are not nearly as important as the first 3. And the reason for this is because Masons in general are just not invited to know all the secrets of the order. It is not uncommon to know a Mason, as you've stated before, who never ever advances beyond the 3rd degree. And I should state now that a Mason who is in the 3rd degree, he can be the master of his lodge, the worshipful master, they call it, of his lodge, which is a bit like an elected office, a bit like president, that lasts for 1 year. Not all Masons are in the Scottish Rite or the Shrine or the Yorkish Rite, but all Masons do know the signs of the first 3 degrees and the penal signs.
And in fact, most Masons are really only guilty of joining an organization they know nothing about and for giving it protection and favor and helping it along, but they really don't know what it's all about, do they?
True. They don't. They're as ignorant as I was. And if they're out there listening, I'd like to say that you can follow the exact same path I have followed. Now that you know the truth about the craft, whether you believe me or not, you should go out and verify for yourself. And once you do verify for yourself, you are no longer bound by those oaths either. They are fraudulent, and they're ridiculous and unreasonable and brutal in many ways.
Not only that, but once you do know about it, you are no longer innocent, but you are, if you don't do something about it, or leave the lodge, or do as this young gentleman is doing, help us to relieve ourselves from the yoke of these secret societies who are planning on stripping us of our freedoms and our rights. If you don't, then you are a fellow conspirator and are just as guilty as those who have always known. And you better understand that, because I'm telling you right now, patriots in this country are getting fed up. And the purpose of this show is to prevent bloodshed. We want to wake people up and do something about this while we can, legally and lawfully, because folks, there will come a day when people will not take it anymore, and they will take weapons in hand. Unfortunately, we can see it coming. Anybody with half a brain can look around and talk to people and see that day is going to come, because nothing's getting better, it's only getting worse. And we don't want that to happen. That's why we're doing this. That's why I've dedicated my life, and that's why I've suffered so much in my life to try to wake people up, is to prevent that kind of thing. And they are dead set upon seeing their dream come true, aren't they, Will? They
have dedicated their lives, their labors, and indeed their entire faith to this. And you have not exaggerated or overrated the problem at all. This is dangerous, people. These men mean business. The Scottish Rite themselves have taken a public stance totally in support of public education by the government. Now, all you need to do is look at how screwed up your schools are, and then turn around and look how screwed up your kids are, and you've got a big, rich organization out there with incredible political power and widespread influence that is supporting this current failed system. This is just one isolated example. If you are not part of the solution, and you have even been just a teeny bit exposed to the truth, then you are part of the problem.
That's correct. And we know that public education, conducted and supervised and organized and funded by the government, is one of the planks of the Communist Manifesto, written by Karl Marx and Frederick Engels. Now, why would Americans ever support such a thing? The strength of our educational system before it began to self-destruct was that it was always handled, funded, and governed, and maintained, and approved, and everything else on a local level. In other words, the school system in my town might be different from the school system in someone else's town 100 miles away, but it would be controlled, governed, decided, textbooks would be chosen, everything on a local level. Our schools did not begin to self-destruct until the state got into the school system, and then the federal government began to poke into it. And specifically, when teachers' colleges funded by the Carnegie, the Ford, and the the Rockefeller Institutes began to change what they taught teachers to teach children. And when that happened, when it became an organized, funded, dictated to type thing, then it began to fall apart. And the less control on the local level, the less our children are educated.
You've hit the nail right on the head. As you've stated in your own book, Behold a Pale Horse, the true enemy is not communism, but Illuminism. When the Berlin Wall fell and the Eastern Europe was opened up, it wasn't all the American companies that beat up path to their door to go open up these markets and make money. There were two groups, and they were both religious in nature. One were the evangelists who went over there to try to spread the word of their religion, and the other were Freemasons who stepped in just the very moment that the communists stepped out. Already lodges have been consecrated in St. Petersburg and Moscow and in several other major cities, and they're just popping up all over. You've got people, very old men, who actually remember when the lodges were around before Stalin wiped them out, and they're bringing them back to replace the communist masters that they just got rid of.
And the only reason that Stalin did away with the lodges in the Soviet Union was because Stalin was a 33rd degree Freemason. He knew how he had risen to power. He knew what the organization was, and he didn't want them turning against him, so he got rid of it.
Absolutely. They're subversives. They got him, just like Hitler, they got him to where he wanted to be, and he's not going to let anybody put him out of place with the same tools that he rose to power with.
Okay, well, we're making a lot of progress here. If you were to walk into a room and see two grown men hugging, what would you look for as identifying traits that would tell you that these two men hugging were Freemasons?
There is a certain patterned ritual that goes that has something to do with that. It deals with the interchange of one of the most secret passwords of Freemasonry, and you must stand foot to foot with another Mason, knee to knee, hand to back, and mouth to ear, and then whisper the secret word in a very low voice. I'm not going to do any of those things. I'm just going to tell you the word is Mahabam, and I don't even know what it means, but I do know where it comes from, and it comes from the ancient Hindu religion, which is the original pagan religion, and many of the other secret words in Freemasonry are of an exact same source.
And they call this the 5 points of fellowship, do they not?
They do. You've done your homework, Bill.
Well, I know more about Freemasonry and the secret societies than most members of Freemasonry and the secret societies ever will. I was, as I've told my listeners, and as I've published in my book, a member of DMLA when I was a teenager. I went to exactly 3 meetings, and DMLA, folks, is a branch of Freemasonry for children, for teenagers actually. And I attended 3 meetings, and my father was transferred to Japan, and I never attended another meeting ever. But I do believe that that's what got me, in fact I know it is, that's what opened the door for me to enter as a member of the Office of Naval Intelligence many years later. When I filled out my forms for security clearance, there was nothing on there for the Order of DMLA, but I knew that it was a branch of Freemasonry, so I checked Freemasonry, and by golly, all of a sudden things began to open for me that had never opened for me before, and which most people who are not Freemasons find impossible to enter into. And I was surprised for a while and a little mystified until I discovered the real reason. But every member of naval intelligence that I ever met was a Freemason, and most of them wore their rings. What are these rings? How can someone identify the ring of a Freemason?
Sticks out like a sore thumb. It looks a bit like a fraternity ring or a football ring or any other signet ring, and on the very top of the ring will be a square and compass set in what looks like a large A shape, with the square on the bottom and the compass on the top, forming what looks a bit like an A, but it's not. You can tell how seriously one takes their position in the craft. The Masons who are really there for genuine reasons, philanthropic and charity work, they have their square and compass facing to them. And those that are trying to impress and enforce the buddy system that got you in naval intelligence and the back-scratching whole thing, they wear theirs facing the outside to tell everybody else in the world who they are.
But really, the only ones who really know, unless you were to ask them what that ring meant, are our fellow craft masons.
Absolutely.
I shouldn't say fellow craft, that's the second degree. Our fellow brothers of the lodge. Okay, folks.